I was thinking the other day about how often people ask me, "Are you done now?" And to be totally honest, I don't believe this process is ever really done. Managing the disease of obesity is a lot like brushing your teeth. So you don't brush your teeth until they're clean and then stop forever, right? You do it every day. And not because it's exciting, but because it's maintenance. And weight management works very much the same way. So if you're new here, and we have a lot of new subscribers right now, welcome to Chrysalis. I'm Becky, and on this channel, I talk about my lifelong battle with metabolic disease and the transformation that I have been through in the last several years. So, I've spent the past few days in Orlando at the Your Weight Matters convention, which I highly recommend. It was a wonderful experience on so many levels. So, my husband and I met some incredible people who are at different stages of their own battles, and also a lot of wonderful healthcare professionals who are helping patients who are dealing with this incredibly complicated and multifactorial condition. And over the next few weeks now, you're going to be meeting several of my new friends. So I hope you'll follow along for those conversations. I think they're going to be a lot of fun and very insightful. But one of the topics that came up quite a bit at the conference was the fact that this is a chronic condition, meaning that it's something we are going to be battling for the rest of our lives. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I have lost 130 pounds, and honestly, even saying that aloud still feels a little surreal because I remember exactly where I was in 2009 when I was at my heaviest. And at that point, I never would have believed that this current reality would be my life. And back then, at my highest weight, I was living with class 3 obesity, and if I'm being completely honest, I did not know if I would ever get out of that place. I was trying to manage my disease before it caused even more damage to my overall health. And so I started making changes, and some of them were small, but some of them were really big. The biggest one was I had gastric bypass surgery in 2009, which was the best decision of my life. And I built my nutrition around whole foods, so protein and plants, chicken, fish, beef, fruits, vegetables, dairy, and foods that really come from nature and not from a factory in a box or a can. And I started moving consistently and with purpose. And really, my weight loss has happened in two major chapters. The first was the year after surgery when I lost about 100 pounds, and then I maintained that loss for almost a decade. And then life happened. So, like, imagine a car crashing into a brick wall at 100 miles an hour. So, my husband was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a cancer of the plasma cells in the bone marrow. And he went through a bone marrow transplant. And then at that time, we were living through COVID, which was crazy for all of us on a lot of levels. And then my brother in law ended up moving into our home for the last 6 months of his life. So I became his hospice caregiver, which was one of the most emotionally and physically demanding experiences that I have ever had. And then just to round things out, I was also going through menopause. So 5 years of chronic stress really caught up with me. And like many women, I did a great job of taking care of everyone else, but I was not taking care of any aspect of my own health. And I ended up regaining about 35 pounds. And by then, I was just completely burned out. So I made the decision to go to talk to my doctor, knowing full well that my lab work was not going to be pretty, right? So my A1C had crossed into the diabetic range. My blood pressure was elevated. And so my doctor and I made a plan, and I started medication to help get those numbers under control. Mounjaro was the main medication that I started. And I went back to my bariatric basics, so protein and plants. I started exercising again. I found a new psychologist and committed to weekly therapy so I could really address everything that I had been carrying for all of those years. And it truly became a team effort, and it worked. So today I strength train at least 3 times a week because I know how important muscle is for staying healthy and strong and independent as I get older. My blood pressure is normal. A1C is normal. My cholesterol is normal. I sleep better. I have great energy and I move a lot better. So honestly, I feel fantastic. But here's the part that I think people don't always understand. And even after losing 130 pounds, I'm still technically overweight, right? So now do not get me wrong on this because my life today is completely different from where I started. I spent over 30 years living with class 3 obesity. And today I'm healthier than I've been like forever. I'm currently actually at the same weight that I was at when I was in 7th grade. So, and I'm incredibly proud of that. But I also know my work isn't finished. And that's been a difficult truth to accept. I honestly think that's the most difficult thing for anyone who has been through a significant weight loss. Because somewhere along the way, we want to believe that there's going to be a finish line. That one day we're going to wake up and think, okay, I made it, right? This is done. I never have to think about my weight again. But that is not how chronic disease works, unfortunately. The American Medical Association classifies obesity as a chronic, recurring, progressive disease. And oh boy, that has most assuredly been my experience with it. Actually, weight regain, it's incredibly common. And it's a huge point of shame for a lot of people. But people often believe like they're going to get to this goal weight and then they're going to be able to kind of go back to eating whatever they want, or they're going to be able to cut back on exercise. But you do not stay healthy by returning to the habits that made you sick in the first place. Like, remember the whole brushing your teeth thing? Yeah. You don't brush your teeth for 6 months and expect to be healthy or have healthy teeth for the rest of your life, right? You brush them every day. Weight management is very much the same way. You don't arrive at a goal weight and then never think about it again. You care for it every day for the rest of your life. I've also realized that mental health has been one of the biggest pieces of this entire transformation for me. Honestly, I think we spend too much time talking about food and exercise because, truly, I get it. They're easy to measure. We can count our calories, our protein, our cups of water. We can count our steps and our PRs when we strength train. We can watch this scale. What we can't easily measure are our thoughts, right? The fear of regaining everything you've worked so hard for, that childhood trauma that still shows up in your dreams decades later, the memories of being bullied, the shame, the exhaustion of realizing you will have to pay attention to your weight for the rest of your life. That has been truly one of the hardest parts for me to accept. This battle isn't one that I'm only going to have to win once. I'll manage this forever. And some days I am frustrated that I still have to prioritize protein and schedule workouts. But then I remember, where I came from, where I was in 2009, and how difficult every day used to be. And then I think about the life I am living now, and it is absolutely worth protecting. So next summer, actually, I'm hoping to have some skin removal surgery, and I've thought about this for a long time. And people often assume that it's purely cosmetic, but after losing over 100 pounds, in my case over 130 pounds, it's really reconstructive, right? The excess skin affects movement, comfort, clothing, exercise. And yeah, it is also a daily reminder of where my body has been. And I am looking forward to that next chapter. And not because I think that that particular surgery will complete me, but because I believe it will improve my quality of life. And I've also learned something else, and that's that I don't have to do this alone. Obesity is a very isolating condition, but it doesn't have to be. I have this very supportive online community. I have a great medical team. And I ask questions, I listen, and when I need to, I can make very hard decisions, right? We all have to make those. And years ago, I thought asking for help meant that I had failed. And now I believe asking for help is one of the strongest, bravest things I've ever done. So where am I today? Healthier? stronger, happier, and still working toward now my next set of goals. And all of those things can be true at the same time. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from my story, it's this: and that a setback doesn't erase your success. Regaining some weight doesn't erase the work you've done, right? This is a chronic condition. Progress isn't destroyed because life got hard. You absolutely do not have to be perfect, but you do need to keep going. And hey, I'm staying in the fight because I am not going to go back to where I was. And every single day is worth it. So thank you for spending a few minutes with me today. If you're on your own health journey, I'd love to hear where you're at. Please share your story in the comments. You are absolutely not alone, and your story might really help somebody else who's struggling. So please like this video, subscribe, and share it with anyone who you believe can benefit from it. All right, I'll see you very soon. All right, take care.